What would we do without the word and? I mean, we have peanut butter and jelly. We have chocolate and peanut butter, eggs and bacon. I mean, what would we do without the word and? There's a lot of combinations in our life, in our world, that we enjoy on a daily or weekly basis that we wouldn't have if it wasn't for the word and. Improv comedians, improv troops will use this formula of yes and for the actor to build on their partner's previous offering, their previous statement, their previous act. They'll approach it, and instead of saying no and shutting it down, they will say yes and add to what has already been done, already been stated. When we look at the life of Jesus, so often he adds and to whatever's been there. We see the gospel writers talk about how Jesus responds to the situations he's in. And frequently we see that they say that Jesus had compassion and he did something. Jesus had compassion. His heart would break. His emotions would well up, and instead of being crushed or crumbled by them, or instead of just feeling the feels, he would respond with action. Like the time he saw a leper and had compassion on him, and he touched him to heal him. He was teaching a large crowd of people, and it had gotten late in the day, and they'd been with him all day, and surely they were out of food, and so his heart broke for them. He had compassion on them, and he fed them. He saw a crowd of people. They'd been traveling with him, and he saw that they were without direction, they were without leaders, they were without guidance and wisdom, and Jesus had compassion on them, and he prayed for them. And the story that we read about this week, we see Jesus traveling 25 miles to a small little town called Nain. And as he and his entourage approach the city, there was a woman coming out. Not just a woman, there was a funeral procession, and she's leading it because it's her son. She's her only son. She's been widowed for years, and her son, too, has preceded her in death. And as Jesus approaches this funeral procession, he could just go walking on into this town. They could stop and let the procession go by, and he could go do whatever business he had in that town. But really what seems is that the only reason they came to Nain was so that Jesus could interrupt this funeral procession, because his heart broke. His heart went out to her. He had compassion on her. And he touches the funeral bier, the pallet that her son is being processed on around the town. He comes up to it and he touches it, and her son wakes up. He returns her son to her. Jesus had compassion, and he did something. His compassion led him to action. See, Jesus didn't have to tell people he loved them. He didn't tell people he had compassion on them. He simply showed it with his actions. And if we're going to be in the family business, if we're going to be about the people business that God was a part of, then we too will have to take up this mantle. That as we go through our day, as we go about our life, our eyes need to be open to see what's going on around us so that we can have compassion on them and let that compassion lead us to action. Not just simply feeling sorry, but truly doing something about it. Studies show that oftentimes when people feel bad, when they see something sad on TV, when they begin to think and talk about that's the length of their action. That they'll discuss and they'll say how badly they feel because of this crisis or that hardship. But rarely do those feelings lead them to an action, lead them to do anything about it, lead them to put their feelings to work. Sometimes they feel just feeling bad is just enough. I'm thankful that Jesus didn't simply let feeling bad be enough. If so, we would still be left on the outside. We would still be far away from Him. We would have no hope of return, no hope of restoration, but because He had compassion on us, because He loved us, He was willing to give Himself fully, completely, so that we could know forgiveness, so we could know His grace, so that we could be restored to relationship with Him again, that we might have the hope of heaven beyond this life. And so, the next time that we feel compassion towards someone, might we take the same steps as Jesus and let our compassion lead us to action so that others can know the love of God.